Good morning, students. Welcome to today's lesson. Before we begin, let's have a word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we welcome you to this lesson. We want to pray that you may start and end with us. Help these students and give them understanding. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, students, we are going to discuss poetry, whereby we will look at the various aspects of poetry. And as you all know, another name for aspects of poetry is stylistic devices. From your Form 1 knowledge, you have already studied the various stylistic devices, and we are going to remind ourselves. By the end of the lesson, you will be expected to have read a poem and be able to identify the various aspects that are present in that poem. So, let's move to the aspects that are present in the poem. The first stylistic device in a poem is rhyme. And you may ask yourself, what is rhyme? Rhyme is the repetition of similar sounds at the end of words that appear closely together. It is the repetition of similar sounds at the end of words that appear closely together. For example, where and there. In that where and there, the sounds are air, and another example is giving and leaving, where the sound is ing. The next example is walked and talked, where the sound is t. And then we have finally rod and lord, where the sound is odd. So I would want you to listen to a video and be able to identify the rhyme in that poem. So this is the video that I want you to listen to. Make sure you are attentive and paying attention.
How I wonder what you are up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
So students, from listening to that video on Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars, we can be able to identify the rhyme in the poem. And in that Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. So let's try and identify the rhyming words. The first pair of rhyming word is star and R. star and r. Where we are looking, the sound that is present is the r sound, star r. So that is a pair because it has same sound, which is the sound r. The second pair is high and sky, whereby when you pronounce this word high and sky, you will realize that high and sky, the sound is I sound, I, sky, the I sound. So that is rhyme in poetry. And I just want to remind you that in Form 1, we already learned that there are two types of rhyming schemes: irregular rhyme scheme and regular rhyme scheme. So for this poem of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the rhyme scheme is regular. Why? This is because star and r are AA, high and sky are BB, and then star and r AA. So it is a regular rhyme scheme. The next aspect in poetry is personification. Many of you might ask yourself, what is personification? And personification is giving human characteristics to non-human things. We have things that are human and we have things that are non-human. A dog is human, a cat is human, but a chair is non-human, a tree is non-human, the rain is non-human. So personification is a style where we give human characteristics to non-human things. For example, the trees whispered a secret to me. We all know that trees are non-human and thus cannot talk. And since they cannot talk, they cannot whisper. But we can, when we say the trees whispered a secret to me, why do we use personification? We use personification to create emphasis and also to make the poem interesting, to make it more humorous. So the trees whispered a secret to me is personification. Another example is the moon is staring at me. When you go out at night and the moon is shining in the sky, you can say the moon is staring at me. We all know that the moon is not human and thus it cannot stare at you. But giving the moon a characteristics of it staring at you is personification. Another instance is the wind was shouting. When the wind is blowing, we always hear sounds. So when we say the wind is shouting, we know that the wind cannot shout. But so as to be able to make people understand more what we are saying, we say the wind is shouting. And another example is rain kissed the dry earth. And another one is money talks. This statement, money talks, most of us have used it, whereby it does not literally mean that money is talking, but it means that it is money which, if you don't have money, you will not be able to buy anything. So it is money that dictates what you will be able to do in life. If you want to buy bread but you have 2 shillings, you will not be able to buy it. But someone who has 50 shillings will be able to buy it. So we use that statement, money talks. Let us move to the next aspect or style, and that is hyperbole or exaggeration. Another name for hyperbole is exaggeration, and it simply means what it states. For example, I ate a mountain of food. When you tell people I ate a mountain of food, it does not necessarily mean you ate a mountain of food, because no one can eat food that is of the same size as a mountain. What we mean by I ate a mountain of food is you ate a large quantity of food. So we are exaggerating, and we exaggerate to make it more humorous and to give emphasis. The next one is I am so hungry I could eat a horse. This statement means that you are very hungry that you could eat anything. You could eat a horse. You could eat something as large as a horse. So you can eat anything that is large in quantity. And her eyes can destroy anybody. This statement doesn't necessarily mean that when that person looks at you, you die or you become sick. It means that her eyes are intimidative. So exaggeration is a feature or a style that is employed in poetry to make us understand more, and it also adds humor. The next style in poetry is onomatopoeia or onomatopoeia, depending from where you come from. So, what is onomatopoeia? Onomatopoeia refers to words that represent sounds. Words that represent sound. For example, rumble, rumble, rattle, splash, bleat, roar, or even hiss, the hiss of a snake. So the word hiss represents a sound that is made by a snake. The word roar represents a sound that is made by a lion. We all know that lions roar. Bleat, splash, the sound splash represents sound that is made by water. When you pour water, it makes a sound, a splash sound. So onomatopoeia is words that represent sounds, and they are used in poetry instead of writing, of using, and you say wah. Instead of saying that, you say the roar of a lion. Hope we all understand. So let us look at imagery, and we find that imagery can be classified into simile, metaphors, and personification. It can be classified into simile, metaphor, and personification. We have already looked at personification, and so let's move directly to simile. What is a simile? A simile is direct comparison between two things that are similar using the words as and like. For example, as happy as a king, that is a simile. As fast as a deer, that is a simile. So a simile is direct comparison. And what is a metaphor? A metaphor is indirect comparison of things that are not similar or related. And we do not use as and like. So the difference between a simile and a metaphor is a simile is direct comparison and comparison between two things that are similar. But for a metaphor, the two things that are being contrasted are not similar, they are different. And what is an example of a metaphor? Your head is a pumpkin. Your head is a pumpkin. So when I say your head is a pumpkin, that is a metaphor. And when I say your head is like a pumpkin, that is a simile. So I hope you've all understood the difference between simile and metaphor. These two always confuse each other, but once you know that simile uses as and like, and whereas metaphor does not use that, and metaphor is indirect comparison. The next is alliteration. Alliteration. What is alliteration? Alliteration is the repetition of initial sound in words that are closely together. So you should note that we are repeating the initial sound. Initial is the first sound in the word. So repetition of the initial sound. And I have told you that initial sound is the first sound in a word. So, repetition of initial sounds in words that are closely together, and these words must be closely together. So, an example, we all learned tongue twisters were in Form 1, and an example of a tongue twister is she sells seashells at the shore. She sells seashells at the shore. So in this tongue twister, you ask yourself, where is the alliteration? Which sounds have been alliterated? So here, this sound in cells, this sound in cells, and this sound in C has been alliterated, because you have said alliteration is the repetition of the initial sound. And what is the initial sound in the word cells? The initial sound is sound S, so it has been alliterated. And then we ask, where else is alliteration in that tongue twister? Shells and shore. So here the sound sh in shells and shore has been alliterated. So that is what we mean by alliteration. The sound s in cells and C has been alliterated, and sh, the sh sound in she and shells has also been alliterated. So that is what we mean by alliteration. Another instance of alliteration can be seen in the tongue twister if, can't I, can tie, a tie. Why can't I tie a tie? If, can't I, a tie. So that sound is alliterated. So I hope when you're given a poem to analyze, you will be able to easily identify alliteration, how alliteration has been used as a style to make the poem what it is, to further the theme of the poem. Irony is the next aspect or style that is used in poetry. And you may ask yourself, what is irony? You know, this word might seem to be a very big word, complex, but it is very simple. So what is irony? Irony is the discrepancy between appearance and reality. Discrepancy between appearance and reality, expectation and results, expressed and intended meaning, implied meaning, and contradiction. So when we say it is the discrepancy between appearance and reality, sometimes what something appears to be is not what it is. That is why we always are fond of using everything that glitters is not gold, because things might seem to be glittering, but when you look closer you might realize that no, it is not what it seems. So that is the discrepancy between appearance and reality. And when you say expectations and results, you might be expecting something, but when the results come out, it is the opposite of what you had expected. So that is irony. And another is expressed and intended meaning. Have you ever said a statement and you wanted it to mean this, but the way people interpret it, they interpret it wrongly? So the expressed meaning is different from the intended meaning. And then implied meaning and contradiction. So let's move to the types of irony. There are 4 types of irony, but in your stage in Form 2, you are only allowed to study 3 types of irony, and it is verbal irony, situational irony, and dramatic irony. The types of irony are verbal irony, situational irony, and dramatic irony. So, what is verbal irony? Verbal irony is when words have been changed so that they mean opposite of what they say. Words mean opposite of what they say. That is verbal irony. And situational irony is when expected results, what is expected is different from what we get, from the results that we get. And what is dramatic irony? Dramatic irony is an instance whereby the people, as the audience, we know about something, but others do not know. The characters in a poem or in a literary work are not aware of what the audience are aware of. So that is irony. Hope you have understood. Okay, the next is symbolism. Symbolism is a figure of speech where a person or an object or a situation represents something else in addition to its literal meaning. So it is a figure of speech where a person, an object, or a situation represents something else in addition to its literal meaning. So for example, the cross. We know what the cross is, but the cross is an object that is symbolic in nature, because the cross always symbolizes the church. That is why many churches which have been constructed have a cross on top of the building, because a cross is an object that represents something else in addition to its literal meaning. So the cross there represents a church. And another one is the dove. A dove is an object, and it has always been used as a symbolic object to represent peace. All over the world, we know that a dove represents peace. So that is what we mean by symbolism. And we have conventional symbols and we have contextual symbols. The cross and the dove is a conventional symbol. A conventional symbol are those symbols that have been generally accepted by everyone, that this is what they mean. So the cross has been generally accepted by the whole of the world to symbolize a church. Dove has been accepted generally by the whole universe to symbolize peace. Then contextual symbol. Contextual symbol is in the context. When you're reading a poem, what is the context of that poem? So in the context, you apply it to a symbol in the context of that poem. What did the writer want a certain object to stand for or to represent? Repetition is another aspect in poetry. So what is repetition? Repetition refers to the use of the same words, phrases, clauses in a line or stanza. Refers to the use of the same words. So when a word like twinkle, twinkle is repeated in a line, that is repetition. Of the same phrase, when we repeat twinkle, twinkle, little stars, how I wonder what you are. Up above the sky so high, like a diamond in the sky, twinkle, twinkle, little stars, how I wonder what you are. We have repeated twinkle, twinkle, little stars, how I wonder what you are twice. So that is repetition. So it refers to the use of the same words, phrases, clauses in a line or stanza. And what is the work of repetition? Why do poets use repetition in their work? Poets use repetition so that they can create rhythm. They can create rhythm. And what is rhythm? Rhythm is musicality. Musicality in a poem. For example, when you say drawing water from the well, from the well, from the well. Repeating that statement from the well is repetition. And the function of repetition is to create musicality. The next is rhythm. From repetition, we have realized that repetition does what? It creates musicality. And that musicality is what is referred to as rhythm. So rhythm refers to the regular pattern. It is a regular pattern or repeated beats in a poem. The repetition of musical beats. So it refers to regular pattern or repeated beats in a poem. For example, drawing water from the well. From the well, from the well. Drawing water from the well. See the handle turning. Lift the bucket on your head. On your head, on your head. Leave the bucket on your head. Do not spill the water. That is rhythm. By repetition, we have been able to create musicality. And that musicality or regular pattern is what is referred to as rhythm. So let's move to mood. What is mood? Mood is the prevailing feeling or overall atmosphere of the poem. The prevailing feeling or overall atmosphere of the poem. Once you have read a poem or you have read a literary work, there is always a feeling, an emotional feeling. You might feel sad, the poem might make you to be emotional. So that is the mood. That is what we mean by mood. And what are examples of mood? Sad, a sad mood. You can have a happy mood, a calm mood where you're just calm. You're not angry, you're not sad, you're not happy, you're just calm. An alienated mood whereby you feel like you do not belong. And then a lonely mood. So those are examples of moods. I know when you read, sometimes you might even read a poem and then you feel like crying. That is mood. Then you start shedding tears. That is what we call mood. It is the prevailing feeling or overall atmosphere of the poem. So that is what we mean by mood. The next is tone. Tone is the attitude the writer expresses towards the subject matter of the poem. Attitude that the writer expresses towards the subject matter of the poem, the character or audience. When a writer is writing, he has a certain attitude. It might be a sarcastic attitude. He's writing, but his writing is sarcastic. And he may also be sarcastic toward a certain character in the poem. So it is the attitude of the writer. So the difference between mood and tone is that mood is what you, the reader of the poem, is feeling. But tone is what the writer is feeling. What did the writer feel when he wrote this poem? So that is what we call tone, and it can be indicated by various aspects in the poem, by the length of the poem, when it is by the shortness of the verbs, whereby when the verbs are very short, like do, go, read, that shows a certain poem of urgency, a tone of urgency. And other tones are a sarcastic tone. I know what you know the meaning of being sarcastic. An ironic tone, an admiring tone, a teasing tone, a critical tone, and also a playful tone. So basically, what you need to note is that tone is expressed by the writer, but mood is expressed by the reader of the poem. What do you feel after you have read the poem? And the tone is what is the writer feeling as he writes the poem. So those are the aspects that are present in poetry, and I know you are familiar with very many other aspects because you are good students who read, and other styles may be assonance, consonants, and very many others that you know, but we were just reminding ourselves. So we are coming to the objective whereby we are going to read a poem, and the poem that you are going to read is The Road Not Taken, and this poem has been written by Robert Frost. So we are going to read this poem and try to analyze it, and as we identify the various styles that are present in this poem, The Road Not Taken. So let me read this to you. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden back. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how Way leads to way. I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the less one, travelled by. And that has made all the difference. So from reading this poem, we can be able to tell why the title is The Road Not Taken, because from the last stanza, line 3, we can see two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. So the road not taken. So what is this poem about? Basically, this poem is about a person who has found himself in a path where he's supposed to take one road, and there are two roads. So he's thinking, which road should I take? So this person looks and realizes that one road is grassy and wanted there. It has not been used. And then he decides to use one. But after treading on that path, he realizes that no, this path is not what I thought it to be. And then he says, should I go back? No. So he says that afterwards, I shall be telling with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So we can relate this poem to our lives as young people. You are young and you are faced with decision making. And when you're faced with this problem of decision making, you are required to make the right decision. But how do you know if this decision that you have made is the correct one? So at times you make decisions, and then afterwards you start realizing, no, I wish I had chosen the other path. I wish I had not made this decision, but I had chosen the other one. So these and then you start having regrets. That is why this person says, I shall be telling with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages. So you sit down and start saying, oh, I wish I had done this, I wish, but it is too late. So let us try to identify the various aspects that are used in this poem, The Road Not Taken. The first aspect is the rhyme. The aspect of rhyme. We can identify rhyming words whereby there is would, stood, could. Would, stood, and could. The oo sound. That is one pair of rhyming words. And then we can also identify both and growth. Both and growth. That is the second pair of rhyming words. So you ask yourself, where is the other pairs of rhyming words? Fair, claim, where, there, and same. So fair, where, there. The a sound, a. And then we have claim and same. So a, the a sound. Then we have lay, day, way. So those are the various rhyme in the poem. And as we look further, we can identify alliteration. And we say that alliteration is the repetition of the initial sound. So in wanted and where, the sound woo has been alliterated. In wanted and where, the sound woo has been alliterated. And another instance is of alliteration is fast and for. Fast and for. So fast, the f sound has been alliterated in fast and for, the f sound. And then we ask yourself, I saw these two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled. They have repeated this I and I so that they can create emphasis that it was not any other person, but that but the author of that, the man in that poem, the persona who took the road that was less traveled. So I and I, it creates emphasis. So that is repetition. And we know that repetition brings what? Musicality. It brings about rhythm in a poem. And also rhyme also brings rhythm in a poem. And you might ask yourself, what is the rhyme scheme in this poem? Would say that the rhyme scheme is a regular rhyme scheme. Why? Because when we identify would, stood, could, that is AAA. Then we have both and growth, that is BB. Then we go to fair, where, and there, that is CCC. Claim, same, that is DDD. So that is a regular rhyme scheme. An example of an irregular rhyme scheme is when you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. There is no repetition. So that is an example of a regular rhyme scheme. So any other style that has been used in the poem is assonance, and assonance is the vowel sound. The vowel sound is repeated closely together. So here we have assonance, edges and edges, whereby the a sound in and a in end and a in edges. The a in edges and a in edges, that is assonance. So students, I hope that this lesson has been educative, and when you are given an exam and you will be expected to give the various aspects to identify, I believe that you will be able to score everything. You will be able to get everything correctly, because these things are not hard. Make sure you read the poem, read it closely with understanding. Closely, you read it for the first time, then you read it for the second time, and then you start analyzing what are the styles, and then you try and find the meaning of the poem. So poetry is a very interesting topic, and I know that all of you will be scoring A's when it comes to poetry. And so make sure you read. When you find a poem, try and analyze it. Do not study for exam only, but study for understanding. So make sure you read and you revise. So I am going to give you an assignment whereby you will go to your Longhorn books, Form 2, and read the poem in page 33 and try to analyze it. And I hope that all of you will score good grades, because I want you all to pass. So make sure you do that assignment. We will look at it in the next lesson. After I have marked, we shall revise it. So hope you have understood. I hope that you have a blessed day. Is there any one of you who has a question?
No, teacher.
So if there's no one who has any question, I believe that you have gained, and so make sure you do the assignment. Have a blessed day.
God bless you, teacher.
Thank you.